Welcome back, everybody. It's Mark. This is Exotic Car Play Place, and today we're standing in front of my BMW 335i. What's the plan for this car? Well, if you've been watching, you know there's been an evolution of sorts with upgrades, modifications, some cosmetic, some performance. We're going to be doing some maintenance on this car. If you're interested at all in this car or this type of vehicle with the N54 engine, be sure to hit that subscribe button. You're going to want to learn a lot more. But today is part one. We're going to get started on the front splitter upgrade on this car. Now, I'm not going to go to eBay. I'm going to customize this. I'm going to make a splitter homemade style, but I'm going to try to make it top shelf. So today's video is really about part one of my splitter upgrade. Now, all of you guys who know, of course, this is an early pre-LCI car. Pre-LCI cars, they had the softer front bumpers. They don't look bad, but to be quite frank, they're a little conservative versus the later style, so the facelifted cars. And the facelifted cars just looked a little bit more consistent with the modern restyle. They're more aggressive, they have bigger, wider openings, they just look more to the modern BMW. These are still sort of old gen a little bit. So what we're going to try to do is bring a little bit of aggression to that front end here. So that's today's plan. Now, today's video, we're going to get started on some of the materials you're going to need. We're going to talk about how I paid for this, where I got this stuff, how much it costs, some of the tools, the basic tools you're going to need to do this job, because in the next video we're going to move along and we're going to continue this process. Alright, so let's review some of the basic tools for now that you're going to need for this job. Number one, you're going to need some drill bits, a selection of drill bits you're going to need because you're going to have to drill holes probably through the underside of your bumper as well as through the newfound and newly designed splitter. You're going to need a drill of some type. Doesn't really matter, 3/8, half-inch drill, power drill. You can use a cordless, whatever that will work with these drill bits. You're going to need, I just picked a couple of wrenches, but whatever you're going to use to tighten up the bolts, because you're going to put a nut and a bolt to hold the splitter on. I wouldn't recommend using a self-tapping screw. I don't think that's going to hold very well. I think over time that'll back out or come loose. So as far as I would be concerned, I'd say let's use a nut and a bolt and maybe some washers in there to make sure it all stays together, and you need some wrenches to make that happen. Now, there's one of two ways you can do this. One, you can take the bumper off completely, do it on the ground. That's probably your best case scenario. I'm going to do it the most difficult way, and I'm going to do it with this mounted on the car. So because I do that, when you look underneath the car, you've got the splitter you've got the bumper that comes around. Underneath there is plastic that goes underneath it, underlaps it, and there's some screws that hold it together. Well, in drilling through to make sure I line up my holes, I want to drill through from the bottom up, from the splitter up through the bumper, but because of that, I want to make sure I'm not going to hit any vital organs, electrical parts for maybe fog lights. I don't want to hit any of I've got the intercooler there. I want to make sure that I'm not going to drill through anything that I shouldn't. So I'm going to use this as to sort of slide it in underneath, and then I'll hit this. I'll make sure that I drill through the parts, and this is the backing. So you can use something like this or any kind of tool that's flat and skinny. It can get underneath between those two panels, and then you can drill through and it'll protect what it is that you're trying to prevent hitting. Of course, you'll need a tape measure. You got to check all your angles and your measurements. Along with the tape measure, you always need a good, I would say, Sharpie or some kind of non-erasable felt, because you're going to need this for a bunch of the work. First of all, to do the template. Second of all, to mark any changes or adjustments that you want to make. You're going to need this, and you don't want it to be easily wiped away, so you want something like a Sharpie that's going to stay. Then I use a good old square. You're always going to need a square to make sure things are at the right angles. Maybe you always need some form of measurement, a comparison to ground level heights, elevations. Make sure everything's square from different angles, and we might need something like this. So you may or may not need this, but it's always nice having something like that around. And then we have these. It's a cabinet maker special right here, a carpenter special. It's a tool that you can get at pretty much any hardware store. It allows you to put the panels together, and you can squeeze this, and then you can squeeze it tight and make sure that it holds your splitter to the bottom of your bumper, and then you're not having to hold everything. Now it'll hold as long as you got your car jacked up high enough, or even if you're doing the bumper on the ground. This is a good way to secure your splitter to your bumper and that it doesn't move around while you drill through it. Should get a couple of these at least. And one thing I haven't decided yet is the form for cutting. Now you're going to need to cut the actual splitter, because depending on the material that you use will determine what type of cutting equipment that you purchase. So I'm going to use a jigsaw for the type of material that I'm using, and I'm going to show you the material here shortly. But there's other options like sawzalls, jigsaws. You can even cut it by hand if you choose. That's going to take you a lot longer, but it's more finesse. So again, there's lots of different options for cutting opportunities. You might need some screwdrivers. There might be some other odds and sods. So let's get into the materials that you're going to need for this. So next we move on to the material you're going to need. Number one, you're going to need some cardboard. A really big sheet that's long enough to go to the full width of your bumper and probably 2 feet in width and about 5 feet long. You're going to need that because you're going to have to create a template. So that's the first thing you need. What you're also going to have to decide is the type of material you're going to use for your splitter. There's a lot of options. Guys are using wood, plastic, composite, all kinds of foams and different options. There's things that you can do, but you got to remember, what's the point of it? You want it to be light, you want it to be effective, and you want it to be light. So I have a bunch of Teflon I was considering, but that looks really heavy and it's quite beefy. So it's good on one hand because it does a great job of really being sturdy, but the problem is it's heavy, and then you got to bolt it up. It's going to create extra weight on the front end. And even worse, if you happen to catch the splitter on something, say like a speed bump or in the snow, or you rip it, that might actually damage your bumper. It might take the whole bumper off or rip it off or break parts of it off. So in my mind, you want the splitter to be light, flexible, and you want it to also be the sacrificial anode of sorts. If you hit something, you want the splitter to break, not your bumper. So here's the material I'm going to use. And I've already done my template. So as an example, I'll kind of show you how I made this. This is my template out of cardboard. It's already cut, and I'll show you briefly how I came to be with this particular piece, but you need cardboard. I also bought this huge sheet of Sunlight. This is a polycarbonate plastic. So it's a 2-layer, it's hollow in between. It's a little bit like cardboard in the sense of it's got reinforced ribs, but it's polycarbonate. In other words, it's very strong, but it's super light too. So there's an added benefit. It's going to be effective, but it's not going to weigh down the front of the car. And it's going to be easy to work with because it's a plastic. I'm not cutting through metal or aluminum. It's not going to make a lot of mess. It's going to be easy to work with and light, effective. So this is what I chose. This is about $60 actually at Home Depot. It's quite pricey for this sheet. What you're seeing here is very, very expensive for what it is. The other thing, when I'm done with that installation, I'm going to need some vinyl wrap because obviously I'm not going to leave it in that format. I'm going to need some sort of a wrap. And I have a lot of access to different types of wrap. You can go down to, doesn't matter, Canadian Tire, local hardware. You can find a lot of options for a wrap, a vinyl wrap that you can wrap over top. We'll see yet what I plan on doing there, but that's something you're going to need to finish it properly. Another thing, if you bring the splitter out so far like I plan on, you're going to need these wonderful little doodads. So what we have here, and you could see this one's carbon fiber. This is called a splitter rod. And so this does a great job of supporting the splitter at the front so the splitter doesn't either pull up or pull down because of wind or structural, issues like that. This is going to do a great job of reinforcing. This bolts to your bumper, and this down here bolts to your splitter. And it does a great job of keeping that splitter sturdy, and it shouldn't move a whole lot. So you're going to probably need a set of these. Now I found these on Amazon, these great little splitter. They're fully adjustable, so you can get a different height on them as well, a little bit. There's some deviation. They look like carbon fiber. They're a great little piece. So these are a must get as well. 25 bucks, can you believe that? Relatively cheap to buy these things. So then what I did was I took my Sharpie and I put it to something like this that has a consistent diameter, and I used that and I ran it along the front edge of the bumper to get that line. So I basically traced along like this. Okay, so after you've traced it all the way around, you found that nice round radius all the way around, you hit a point where you just think it's too far. So then you got to find a happy medium. I did mine so it's more or less in line with the front wheel, so it gives it a really clean look on the front. I didn't want it straight flush. I want it out a little bit, but it's in line with the front wheel, so it looks actually quite sharp. It's all lined up very nicely. Again, you want to have to do a little trimming around here to make sure you get the right radii and all that, get all that fixed up really nice. And then After that, then you basically take this out and do a little cleanup. You might need to do a little cleanup here and there because you're going to use this now to trace to your material. So now here's the final product. What I did was, obviously the cardboard ran right across. So what I had to do was I had to measure back from the front edge of the bumper and see how much of that under wrapped, because it ends at a point. And then you've got that belly guard that runs and kind of goes underneath and tucks underneath. So what I wanted to do was measure so that I had a distance to the back of that plastic and a little bit forward, because there's some screws holding that other pan on. So this doesn't go right to the back edge of the bumper. The back of the edge of the bumper goes usually kind of in around there. So what I did was I just cut it back a little bit so that it's not sitting over top of the screws in there, and rather I have missed the screws altogether, so you don't have to muck around with the belly pan screws. Everything stays as is. This just gets bolted right to the bottom edge. So ignore this, that was the handle from the box. We'll fix that up. And again, as you can see, I have a similar amount that's screwed in versus what's sticking out of the front. A little bit more over here, but generally it's about a 50-50 split. We're gonna probably put a couple per, you know, 2 here, 2 here is likely what you're gonna see. Probably have 4 on each side. What I'm actually gonna do is probably leave the center area open. So, and there's your template ready to go. Just a little fine tuning, trimming of the edges, and we should be good to trace on the material, and we'll do that on the next video. So guys, I really hope you liked the video. If you do and you like where the project is going with my 335, be sure to hit that subscribe button and drop me a line. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it, or any kind of input that you might have. Make sure you hit that in the comment section. Love to hear from you. So anyway, I really hope to see you guys on the next one, and I can't wait to talk to you guys soon. Catch you then. Bye-bye.